Welcome to the Daily Coffee Pro friends. Today's episode of the podcast is brought to you by Elixir Specialty Coffee. Head to elixirspecialtycoffee.com and enter the code IMAPITFORWARD to receive 10% off your first purchase. Today on the Daily Coffee Pro, we are looking at whether you prefer naturals or whether you prefer washed coffee. Now, this isn't really a discussion about naturals or washed coffee. This is a discussion about the reason behind why you say you prefer naturals or washed coffee or anything in between. Honey processed or fermented coffees or all the new technologies that come in with what kind of coffees you prefer. Now, the reason I want to talk about this is because you hear a lot of people, whenever we announce on Elixir that there's going to be a coffee that is an elixir that we're making with naturals, we end up getting blowback from people either that love naturals or hate naturals. But mostly the blowback comes from people that say, you shouldn't be using naturals. And so I ask them, why shouldn't we be using naturals? And they'll usually come back and say, I hate naturals. Well, why do you hate naturals? And they'll say, usually, X person or Y person says that you shouldn't drink naturals. Now, this kind of infuriates me. And the reason it infuriates me is mostly because I get infuriated by people who are sheeple. If I could have a magic wand and give the coffee industry, I couldn't give one trait or change one thing about the coffee industry. There would be two, but there are two things that I would change about the coffee industry. I would give everyone the magical superpower of assertiveness, and the other thing I would do is give them the magical superpower of open-mindedness. Now, the reason I say that is because there are a lot of people in our industry that say things because of people they admire saying them. So people mirror the opinions of people that they admire, and that's not new. But it is dangerous, and it's becoming more and more dangerous today than it was in yesteryear. And the reason is because previously, when we had opinions about things, we usually needed to know something about it. That hasn't been in existence for about 10 years. And why is that? That's because people are reading headlines of things and assuming that means they understand the whole story behind it. You know, that's the whole clickbait phenomenon. People read the headline of an article and then go and tell all of their friends that this is the new thing that has happened. You know, one person in our industry turns around and says something about naturals, and because they're a person who is of great influence, everyone then starts saying, well, I don't like naturals, or fuck naturals. Well, what I would like to invite you to do is to think for yourself. I would like to invite you, and this is related to not just naturals or washed coffees or, different processing techniques, but this relates to equipment, this relates to people, this relates to everything in our industry and in your life. And what that thing is that I'm inviting you to do is, if you are asked a question and you have been asked to give your opinion about something, have an opinion that you believe in because you have researched it. I don't care whether you like naturals or not. What I do care about is you saying to somebody that you don't like naturals when you don't understand the reasoning behind why your favorite roaster or author or farmer or anything like that hates naturals. I would like for you, if you do hate naturals, to be able to give a reason that makes sense to you and that is current. A little bit of history. Most of the people who are spitting the opinion that they hate naturals are basing that opinion on previous processing technologies or lack thereof. So a bit of background, in the olden days, which was, a decade ago and further, what would happen was the way that they would process natural coffees is once the cherries were picked, they would put them out to dry on tarps or on concrete, and they would put them layered in, they would just spread them out there layered quite thick. And they put it out in the sun. It was much more cost effective to do that than to pay for water to process it through a washing station. And so what would happen when the coffee was stacked so high, the hot sun would come in and it would cause fermentation to happen through the cherries down the bottom would get all hot, and the steam would come up through all of them and cause fermentation and a sort of funkiness to happen. Now, while there are still farms out there that are doing that, the majority of the coffees that make it into specialty coffee are not those kinds of farms. And I invite you, if you have had previous opinions on certain types of coffees that are processed, or different origins that coffees are coming from, or whatever your opinions about specific massive groups of anything to do with coffee are, I would invite you to reassess. I would invite you to find out where the natural coffees you're drinking come from. I would invite you to find out how the farmers are processing those coffees, because most of them are on Instagram now, and you can see photos of how they're doing it. And I would invite you to formulate a different opinion and on a regular basis, try and retry things that you previously didn't like. So if you previously didn't like coffees from a certain origin because they tasted dirty, okay, how many years ago was it that you had that opinion? I personally have been guilty of this when coffees that I was drinking from Indonesia, back in the day, the coffees that I was drinking tasted dirty. And the reason they tasted dirty was, I found this out after asking some questions a few years later, was that the coffees that were being purchased by this particular roaster that I was tasting from Indonesia were left on the side of the road to dry naturally on the side of the freeways or, the busy roads. And it would rain, and as it rained, there was wash off that was coming from the road. It was getting into the coffee and causing it not to taste great. So I had kind of decided I'm not going to taste any more Indonesian coffees because they're all shit. Well, they're not all shit. They really aren't. There now when you taste coffees that are being produced with great technology and are actually making it into, specialty stores, something that scored an 84 today isn't what scored an 84 previously. It's just changed. That's because we've got better as an industry at tasting and cupping and scoring and just better at doing everything in general. So if you're one of these people that has these opinions and that has vehemently decided that because somebody keeps saying that you shouldn't drink naturals and you're not drinking naturals, I would invite you to reconsider and to formulate your own opinion. I would invite you to start tasting some naturals. I would invite you to open your mind, and I would invite you to consider something. Well, consider two things. First of all, most of the people who rank in competitions, win and rank in the competitions, are all using naturals. Second of all, this week, the day before yesterday or yesterday, there was a coffee that broke 2 records. This was a Panamanian coffee that was produced by the Lamastas family estate, Elida coffee farm in Panama. And this coffee broke 2 records. The first record was that as a coffee that was offered at public auction, it was the first one ever to score 95.2, the highest scoring coffee offered in public auction. And number 2, it was the first coffee to reach a 4-digit sell price per pound. It's the highest selling publicly traded or publicly auctioned coffee ever. It sold for $1,029 per pound, and there were 100 pounds of this coffee produced. And congratulations to Wilford Sr. and Wilford Jr. From the Lamastas family estate. They went through hell and high water to get to the point where their geshers are doing this well. And this is the 2nd year in a row that they have taken out Best of Panama, and they won, the auction was won at $1,029 per pound. This coffee was a natural. It was a natural it was a natural gesher from Panama. And the reason I say this is because you can't be having all these opinions based on what other people are telling you to have and still be considered a professional in the industry that you're in. If the best reason that you have for anything is, well, somebody else has that opinion and I respect that person, so that's why I have this opinion. But on the other side of things, naturals are winning all the competitions, and naturals are, let me say that again, well-processed naturals are winning all the competitions, and well-processed naturals are becoming the most expensive coffees in the world. There is a real market for them. And so I want you to have that as just some food for thought. How open-minded are you being about the way that you approach your profession, the products that you're serving, your buying philosophy, and the way that you engage with other professionals in the industry? On that note, peace, love, and peanut butter, friends. Have an amazing rest of your day.